Have you ever heard of the Sassoon or Sassoon family? They were the power behind the drug OxyContin. They destroyed hundreds of thousands of lives and made $20 billion before anyone could stop them. But a century before that, there was another dynasty that didn't just profit from addiction. They industrialized it, weaponized it, and turned an entire nation into their customer base. This family addicted millions. They destroyed generations and shaped the entire economy of Asia. And when it was over, when the bodies were counted, what happened to them? They didn't go to prison. They were given knighthoods. They got statues. Their names were carved into hospitals and universities. Because that is how drug empires work. You make your money destroying lives and then you launder it through charity. And by the time anyone realizes what happened, you are too respectable to touch. This is the story of the Sassoon or Sassoon family, the opium cartel that built modern India, financially ruined their Asian trading partner, and walked away as heroes. And if you think this is ancient history, if you think we learned our lesson, look at your medicine cabinet. Because the same playbook is being run right now, on an even larger scale. Very few people know about the Sassoon family, a Jewish dynasty whose wealth, power, and influence spanned centuries and continents. They were often called the Rothschilds of the East. This story begins in Iraq, where they were prominent bankers for the Ottoman Empire. The patriarch David Sassoon was born in 1792. His father served as treasurer to the governor of Baghdad. The notoriously corrupt governor threatened David's life. Because of this persecution and extortion, David Sassoon decided to flee Baghdad around 1829. He went first to Persia, and then settled in British-protected Bombay, India, now Mumbai, a colonial port city exploding with trade. David Sassoon arrived with almost nothing, but he had three things: connections, a network of deep family and religious ties across the Middle East, knowledge of court politics and how to read power, and perfect timing. He arrived just as the British were solving their biggest economic problem by turning India into a drug factory. In Bombay, he leveraged his linguistic skills and trade networks to establish David Sassoon and Company. He capitalized on the British Empire's expanding trade networks, establishing a massive trading business focusing on commodities like cotton, textiles, spices, and, most importantly, opium. This marked the swift beginning of the Sassoon family's immense wealth and influence. The problem facing the British Empire was critical: the flow of silver. The British were addicted to tea, silk, and porcelain from the East Asian kingdom, but the imperial government only accepted silver in return. Every year, millions of pounds of silver vanished from British coffers. This trade deficit was an existential economic crisis that threatened to collapse Britain's entire monetary system. So the British devised one of the most evil economic strategies in history: grow opium in India and flood the market with it. Instead of demanding silver for tea, local addicts would pay silver for the drug. This was a calculated, deliberate move. The British were intentionally creating a drug epidemic, knowing full well that opium was addictive and destructive, because the economics worked. By 1830, British India was producing over 1,500 tons of opium annually, almost all of it destined for the East Asian markets. This wasn't a criminal enterprise. It was official government policy. Opium accounted for roughly 14% of British India's total revenue. David Sassoon saw this as the opportunity of a lifetime. The Sassoons dominated the trade through sophisticated logistics and vertical integration. They didn't just sell the drug. They controlled the entire supply chain. They financed the cultivation in India, owned the warehouses, operated their own fleet of ships, and ran their own insurance. The Sassoons were perfect, loyal partners for the British Empire, gaining protection and legal legitimacy. By the late 1850s, the Sassoon Company was shipping 59,000 chests, over 7 million pounds of opium annually. The result was devastating. Entire coastal cities were collapsing into addiction. The silver they had accumulated for centuries was now flowing back out, straight into British and Sassoon hands. The imperial government was panicking. In 1839, official Lin Zexu confiscated over 1,400 tons of the substance and destroyed it publicly. The British response was to declare war, the First Opium War. The resulting Treaty of Nanting, 1842, was one-sided. The nation was forced to pay Britain 21 million silver dollars, open 5 ports, and cede Hong Kong in perpetuity. This made the trade impossible to stop. When local officials attempted to enforce anti-drug laws again in the 1850s, Britain treated this as a violation, leading to the Second Opium War, 1856 to 1860. British and French forces occupied the capital and burned the old summer palace. The resulting Treaty of Tientsin explicitly legalized the opium trade. The Sassoons' fortune, which backed Britain, was now sanctioned and protected by international law. The Sassoons reinvested every rupee into legitimate infrastructure, opening banks, buying real estate, and funding railroads. Philanthropy was their insurance. They built the Sassoon docks, 1875, funded hospitals, schools, synagogues, and the David Sassoon Library, 1847. The British establishment rewarded this loyalty. David Sassoon was appointed Sheriff of Bombay, 1853, and his son Albert was made a Knight Commander, 1872. In 1873, Albert became the first Jew granted the freedom of the City of London, a status even the Rothschilds hadn't achieved. They laundered their fortune by showcasing it and aligning themselves with the empire. The Sassoons intermarried with the Rothschild banking family. Most notably, Sir Edward Albert Sassoon married Aline Caroline de Rothschild in 1887, connecting their mercantile empire with European finance. The family also claimed Davidic lineage. Historians note their possible connection to the Donme and the Sabbatarian movement, an esoteric sect. Sources suggest connections between the Rothschilds, Jacob Frank, a Sabbatorian successor, and the formation of the Illuminati, aiming to subvert traditional structures. The Sassoon Empire ended abruptly in the East. In 1949, the Communist Party nationalized all foreign assets, erasing over $1 billion of Sassoon wealth overnight. The family was expelled by a government that used the memory of the Opium Wars as propaganda. Back in England, David Sassoon and Company slowly collapsed, ending not with a bang, but with bureaucratic humiliation by the 1980s. The buildings remain in Mumbai, but the family is scattered and largely forgotten from popular memory. The history of the Sassoons offers stark lessons relevant today, proving that the playbook remains the same. Philanthropy is not just charity, it's insurance and immunity. Respectable institutions are often built on blood money. The Sassoon Library is beautiful, but it was built with opium money. State-backed drug operations are legal until they are not. The Sassoons and companies like Purdue Pharma operated within the law until public outrage became too loud to ignore. The system doesn't stop drug empires, it profits from them until it can't anymore. The playbook is identical. Industrialize addiction, maximize profit, donate to institutions, wait until the bodies pile up, and let the next generation inherit the clean money. Today, the pharmaceutical industrial complex uses the same model. Opioids, benzodiazepines, and ADHD medications create long-term dependency. Followed the money in every crisis. The Sassoons weren't the only ones profiting. British banks, insurers, and ports all collected taxes. Today, in the opioid crisis, we must look beyond the Sacklers to the distributors, McKesson, Amerisor, Bergen, and Cardinal Health, the pharmacy chains, and the officials who approved the drugs and then joined pharma boards. The opioid crisis was not just Purdue. It was the entire medical industrial complex. Medical systems are built on dependency. Modern medicine has shifted from curing disease to managing chronic conditions. Diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol. Managing chronic conditions means creating permanent customers who pay monthly for the rest of their lives. The Sassoons addicted the Asian market to opium. Modern medicine calls it treatment, but the economics are identical. The Sassoons were not held fully accountable. David Sassoon died wealthy and respected in 1864. Similarly, the Sacklers paid settlements but kept most of their estimated $20 billion wealth, shielding it in trusts. In 50 years, the next generation will be funding new institutions, and the opioids will be forgotten. The trick is always the same. Make your money from human suffering. Donate enough to buy silence, and wait for time to turn your crimes into history. The buildings with their names become monuments to generosity instead of memorials to the bodies you left behind. The Sassoons made history. The Sacklers made headlines. But the trick remains the same. Look past the monuments, ignore the rhetoric, and follow the money, because every dynasty built on addiction is merely waiting for time to polish its crimes into a heroic legacy, and the next one is already funding your future.